है ना? So keep a screenshot of this table so that you are also aware that this is what we are going to have a look at. See, always remember VARC can be bucketed into types, and I have made my utmost attempt to make the best course that you will find in the entire CAT market to explain this to you, right? So definitely it will be the most crisp way you will find. But VRC itself, language itself is a subject which will have some subjectivity कि थोड़ा बहुत इधर उधर होगा. But this thing is applicable to more than 90% of the situations. कि there are only five, largely, not only, there are largely five purposes, and each of these purposes are 2 to 3 tones in which they are expressed. All right. So we will keep this table in mind. And now from here, we are going to move ahead in order to analyze full length paras. Okay, full length paras maybe I'll tell you what. Whenever we deal with RCs, first thing is we always shorten it. We eliminate the modifiers, right? So if you remember in our second class, which was about eliminating modifiers, we did two RCs. One was on British colonies and another was on topophilia, right? So British colonial policy and topophilia. These are the two RCs that we did, right? We already had eliminated the modifiers and stuck to the main part, right? So that main part is here. I have not taken the entire RC. This is obviously from CAT 2019 slot 2, but I haven't taken the entire RC. I eliminated the modifiers, the unnecessary information, and made it short. Because always that's the first step. We eliminate the unnecessary information and keep what is important. And then from there, we start analyzing the RC. Okay? So through the VRC course, one class will always be connected to another. That's why I would request you to always revise, to always look back at the classes, to always practice a lot more so that things are retained in your head. So every day you should do at least 1 or 2 RCs, even no matter what. Like if you are a working professional who is working a lot, still 1 RC in a day you should find time to do. है ना? कुछ नहीं लगता, 30 minutes से ज़्यादा नहीं लगता to do 1 RC. ठीक है? So let us look at this passage. I would want you to read it once so that we all are on the same page. Did you read it? If you read it, बस मुझे उतना बता दो, बाकी तो we will analyze it together. ठीक है? Okay. So this was a rather tough RC. ऐसा नहीं कि बहुत easy RC है. ठीक है? तो इसको short करने के बाद ये better समझ रहा होगा, है ना? We learned कि whether the original form of it was much more complicated than it, but when you break it down, when you eliminate modifiers and just write the core of it, the main sentences, you are able to understand it much better. But still, I will teach you how to maneuver through such RCs, okay? And how to really segregate it into information bits so that you understand what is happening. Okay? So it says British colonial policy. This is definitely our subject. Always when you read the topic, read up RC, you should know what it is about. What's the topic? The topic or the subject is this. Topic to अलग, but the topic मतलब एक sentence होगा. Subject is sort of that one thing they are talking about. This is a subject. The subject is British colonial policy. Went through 2 phases. British colonial policy के 2 phases थे. 2 phases थे, first और second, right? First phase क्या था कि they occupied India. First phase is they occupied India, but that put them into contradictions. So this they haven't explicitly mentioned, but they mean to say that this is the second phase. First phase is they properly occupied India. The British colonial policy went through 2 phases. The first was tactically, they occupied the entire India. Second, what happens is that put them into contradiction. What kind of contradiction? That it represented some enlightenment rationalism, जिसका मतलब मैं नहीं समझता, but because of which it could hardly adopt self-denying attitude. Self-denying attitude मतलब to say no to oneself. It had restructured everything in Europe and would do the same in India. So enlightenment rationalism का मतलब ये है कि they were basically trying to restructure things in India, bring in modernity. ठीक है, rationalism लाने की कोशिश कर रहे थे वो इंडिया में. They had restructured, Renaissance period had happened in Europe. So they had restructured everything in Europe and would do the same in India. So this was the second phase. Then they went in contradictions where they could not just exist. अभी कर लिया ना occupy तो बस exist करो. They couldn't do that. They wanted to change everything in India. So consequently, they started introducing logic of modernity into Indian society. So they tried to bring उनको सब change करना था तो modernity लाने लगे. But this modernity did not enter a passive society. It was often resisted. People resisted it. This is not our culture. So people resisted it. As a result, continuity and discontinuity left behind independence was complex. Because of that, what happened is half of the society became modern, half did not, and it was a very degenerate system. है ना, कहीं पे modern हो गया और वो आज भी हम face कर रहे हैं, by the way. Right? Our society in general is not uniform, right? Because we held some values. ऐसे ही हमारे country में diversity इतनी है that people in general have many different beliefs. But because Britishers came and they tried to westernize us, right? They tried to modernize in what way? Modernity kya? They tried to westernize everything. That whatever the belief was, they tried to implement it all here, and that sort of led to a degenerate society. So वही वो कह रहे हैं कि there were two phases. First, they occupied India, and second, they tried to impose modernity in India. But was this modernity easily accepted? No, it was resisted, because of which it had very complex results. Most significantly, why was it resisted, or why did it have complex results? It's because most significantly, we'll use another color. Most significantly, modernity assumed an external character. The acceptance of modernity connected with subjection. What is subjection? You make somebody your subject. Subject मतलब राजा की प्रजा, right? किसी को तुम प्रजा बना रहे हो. You are making them your subjects, right? So whole point is that if you accepted what they're telling, you're basically accepting them as your rulers, right? So modernity, good or bad, people didn't see if it was good. Whatever they were telling was good or bad. It was just accepted somebody's trying to dominate you, right? Because of which two problems happened. One was theoretical, another was political. Theoretically, what happened? Applying transition process is misleading because the logic of endogenous change does not apply. Because this transition process was not natural, it was forced. So theoretically, you cannot say that this was a transition. It was force also, it was dominance only. You're changing people. They are not transitioning all by themselves. The modernity is not by themselves, right? So theoretically, that was the problem. Politically, it inscribed on every aspect of that period. Okay? Politically, it basically transformation operated on external force, inscribed on every aspect of that period. So basically, they haven't explicitly mentioned politically, but you can understand, right, that people were resisting, lot of Swadeshi movement, this, that. They came as an opposition ki bhai tumhara rule nahi chalega, right? So that happened. Now they are saying that despite this externality, some outcomes were notable. कुछ चीजें अच्छी हुई, कुछ चीजें अच्छी हुई उसके कारण. But जो economic reforms है, it did not lead to classical capitalism, but produced a degenerate form. Degenerate मतलब टूटा फूटा, broken, right? So economic transformation also it tried to bring, but it had very degenerated form, which described as development of underdevelopment. But whatever was underdeveloped became more underdeveloped because kahi kahi pe you got modernity, capitalism, and everything grew, and kahi pe it left broken systems because people kahi ke nahi rahe. They couldn't believe what is new, they couldn't believe what is old, and they left confused, and it is all broken system. So this is what the passage means. Okay? Now that we have understood the passage, can we focus on the tone and the purpose? Right? Let us break this down into what tone or purpose. First, we look at the purpose. What purpose do you think the first passage is about? Is it facts or is it opinions? First, you should identify that. Are there majorly facts or are there opinions? What is author saying? Author is saying that there were two phases. First phase was this, second phase was this. They tried to do this in India, but then they faced some resistance. Is this facts or is this opinions? Tell me, Amrita, you also tell. Are these facts or opinions? These are facts, right? Facts, yes, these are facts. Author is not saying what could have happened. Author is not saying, author is just recounting the events. Author is just recounting the events. So para 1 is all facts. When it is all facts, what is the purpose? The purpose is to inform, of course, or explain. Right? Now this happens, this is the purpose. And what is the tone? Tones can be two, either informative or descriptive. Which tone is this? Is the author just informing or is the author describing the event entirely? Descriptive, yes. The author is describing what happened during that time. Author is not just informing, right? So this is a descriptive tone. Very good. So this is the analysis of para 1. Now let us move to para 2. In para 2, what is happening? जगह कम है, मैं इसको ना एक लाइन में लिखती हूँ. Para 1 is all facts. What is the purpose? The purpose is to inform. And the tone is descriptive. Now tell me what is happening in para 2. Most significantly, initiatives assumed external character. It was considered as subjection, which led to two problems, theoretical and political. So what are we doing here? This transition process is misleading. When you say the transition process was misleading, see, analysis is when positives and negatives both are told. There are no positives told. Only negative is told. First, you have to start understanding that from here, author is giving opinions. Because author said something was misleading. The moment you attach some adjective, or some adverb, that way you're attaching, the moment you do that, you add an opinion, right? Because probably Amrita, if she was a historian, she would say the transition process was misunderstood, right? You can say, Nitya, that it was misinterpreted. This author is saying it's misleading. All things mean different. Misunderstood, misinterpreted are same, but misleading is something else altogether, right? So this is an opinion where author is saying that something was misleading. So the moment you attach an opinion with something, an adjective or adverb, it means you're adding your opinion. So it is not just facts anymore. Plus, it is not balanced. There are no positives, negative stories. Just one side author has taken. So definitely it is not inform, it is not analysis, it is not explore also. So we have two options with us. Either it is to question or it is to persuade. Persuade happens when author says that you believe what I'm saying. But author is not using such a language, right? Author is just telling you that something that was thought is misleading. So you're debunking, right? Key transition process was misleading. So it was called transition process. It was believed to be a transition process. That is what Britishers told, that it was a transition process. But that concept was misleading. So you're debunking a popular belief. This is classic example of how when you say that something was misleading, it means something was believed, but whatever was believed was wrong. Whatever was sold to you was wrong. This is what CAT coaching also do. Now they tell you they'll provide you profile analysis, personal attention, this and that. But do they do it? No. So a lot of marketing material is misleading, right? So whatever is believed was wrong, that is what misleading is. So here you are basically, the purpose is here to challenge, question. The author is actually challenging, to challenge, I'll say. ऐसा नहीं होता बेटा कि डायरेक्टली तुम्हें ऐसे से क्लियर वर्ड्स में मिलेगा, थोड़ा थोड़ा इंटरप्रेट करना पड़ेगा. You'll have to interpret it on your own, and this is the first time we are applying it, so it's going to take time, don't worry. But this is, I am just telling you the cues about how you read, right? So when they say that something was misleading, so it means you are correcting the belief, right? You are correcting. See, you thought that this modernity was external, it had a problem. The Indian values weren't modernized, Western values were forced onto Indians to follow, so don't call it transition process. That term itself was misleading. So you're correcting. So this is a corrective tone. To challenge or to question could happen in corrective, cautionary, reflective. This is a corrective tone, right? Author is not reflecting on the past. है ना, ऑथर कुछ जो भी टाइम पीरियड है उसके पहले की बात नहीं कर रहा है, ऑथर कुछ रिस्क डेंजर नहीं बता रहा है, ऑथर बस तुम्हें करेक्ट कर रहा है कि व्हाट यू थॉट वाज रॉन्ग. दैट्स व्हाई दिस इज अ करेक्टिव टोन. एंड व्हाट इज द लास्ट पैराग्राफ? Para 3. Despite this externality, some outcomes were notable, but economic reforms did not lead to a positive. So here they're saying that something was positive, but there was negative also. So here author is to analyze. Author is evaluating, right? Ki something was good, some outcomes were good, but some led to a lot of negativity, like development of underdevelopment, right? So here it is, but because the negative is much more than positive, negative is chota, some were good, but negative has been described. That's why we will say that tone is critical. Okay, so this is the overall analysis of this passage. Do we get it? Do we understand it? Para by para? Yeah, very good. So initially this process can be very time taking, but you have to take that time. Remember this, okay? Abhi VRC में we are not going to run behind speed कि fast आ जाए. No. Abhi हम depth पे focus करेंगे. We'll focus on how well can we understand something. Because once you start understanding something deeply, then with time, you won't realize when your knowledge base will automatically improve and you'll quickly start taking things on. Okay? You won't need so much time now, but you'll have to give that time. That's why I did not say much. I say if you're working on a work day also, there should be 30 minutes given to one passage. Any one passage, you read it, you break it down bit by bit. Okay? Okay. So this is it. So now out of these all tones, just like a small tip. So overall, if you want to understand the passage, overall, what is the end point that they're trying to say? Overall, when you summarize these three passages, they're basically author is informing us. First passage, author is informing us that there were two phases of British rule. One was they occupied us. Second, they tried to force modernity on us. Right? Second paragraph says that this modernity was an external character and that's why it led to problems. Right? This modernity was wrong because they said it was transition. It was not. It was forced onto us. Third, some things were good, but overall it led to negative impact, degenerate society it created. So at the end, author is trying to tell us that because of the modernity that they tried to impose on us, because see, even if in the first passage they have said that there were two phases, first phase they have mentioned only in one line that they occupied India. They started talking about second phase in a detail, right? So definitely they're talking about the second phase more, right? Ki modernity, and then author says this modernity had an external character and they forced it onto Indian society, जिसका result ये था कि हमें degenerate form of capitalism mila. So overall, author here is being critical of the usually last passage का जो tone होता है ना, usually 90% of the times last passage's tone concludes the tone of the entire RC, right? So overall, if you say the author's purpose in the tone was to analyze or evaluate, the author's tone was to analyze or evaluate the phase two, that the modernity, subjection of modernity in Indian society with the British colony, and take a critical tone on it, that it led to degenerate form of capitalism. Okay, so that is the overall purpose of this passage. This passage was just written to tell you that whatever modernity they brought, that was like wrong for us Indian society because a lot of degenerate things happened. So this is how you summarize a para and get to the main point.